We're going through the papers this morning in the company of the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and Fraser Myers, deputy editor at Spiked. And Fraser, I want to start with you. It's a story that is still making lots of front pages this morning. We did a debate on this yesterday, whether or not these XL bully dogs should be banned or not. And there's been a big interview with the girl who herself was attacked, luckily survived, but she's saying she would like the owner of the dog to be imprisoned, and she thinks that the dog should be destroyed.
Have we got a Daily Mail's front page, the Daily Mail?
Somewhere over there, yeah.
It's a really harrowing interview. You know, she's talking about the amount of pain she was in, having to essentially two men having to beat off the dog, and then they've been injured as well. You know, these dogs seemingly are incredibly dangerous. There's a new story every week about them attacking or mauling someone. It's been a couple of months since a young child was killed by an American bully, XL. And obviously, so understandably, there are calls for something to be done legally. I think the issue is that the Dangerous Dogs Act, the piece of legislation that we use to regulate these kinds of dogs, is famously one of the worst pieces of legislation that has ever been implemented. It has just failed spectacularly. I think,
In what way?
The number of dog attacks, the number of fatal dog attacks has increased massively since the Act came in.
The thing that I find unbelievable about this legislation is that they record the amount of attacks, but they don't record the breed of the dog, which sort of defeats the purpose.
And the point of the legislation is to be sort of breed-specific and to say that there are these certain breeds that should be banned. I think that kind of makes sense. The RSPCA take a very different line, though. They say that it's not about the breed, it's about the owner. I think when you see a pattern like this with these XL bully dogs, and I mean, why have they given that name?
Well, a lot of this is about money. Then somebody creates this breed, and then they become desirable. And when they become desirable, they become valuable, and then there's more of them bred and that sort of thing. So no need for them. Shouldn't be there.
I'm just amazed the government's acting so slowly on this. I mean, how many more people need to be attacked? How many more dogs? Apparently, they killed one dog a day, this particular breed, in the month of July alone. So people who come out as sort of animal-loving, it's actually affecting other dogs, not just us.
American bully dogs are accountable for 73% of dog attacks since 2022.
Yeah.
And there's not actually that many of them. I was interviewing a leading dog behaviourist, I didn't even know that was a thing, last week, called Stan Rawlinson.
Well, it's a big thing. It's a very important thing. Actually, between dogs that are sick and behaving the wrong way, and you get someone to let them behave in the right way. He
shot me, Eamonn, because he actually said, and he loves dogs, he's behaviourist, he studies dogs, he helps people train their dogs, and he actually said that these dogs are intrinsically evil and nobody should be allowed to own.
Well, I heard this moron on the radio this morning on my way into work, and he was sitting talking about, he was saying, yeah, but don't you understand, the bulldog, was a traditional British dog.
Not the British bulldog.
But it doesn't matter if it is or isn't. If it kills people, it shouldn't be there. I don't care how traditional it is. It's traditional, it kills people. So
I heard that as well, yeah.
Yes, anyway. Right, OK, so that's that. Dawn, Daily Express, Britain deal with France to end the Channel crossings can never work. It can never achieve its aim. This is in the Daily Express.
This is the Daily Express exclusive. It's one of their big sellers every time they do a migration story. Why UK's £480 million deal to stop the boats is doomed, and it features a group of off-duty French police officers in a bar having a nice time. So I feel a bit sorry for them because they are off-duty. So they've done a 2-week, the Express done a 2-week probe into what the hell is going on with all the money, bearing in mind only recently, we're still due to hand over 467 million in the next 3 years to encourage the French to stop the people trafficking, basically. That's what you need to stop. This isn't about the migrants. This is about people who are making huge amounts of money out of the misery of these people coming across the Channel. But they've got an interview at the Express. I've got an interview with our off-duty police, French police officer saying, it's not our job to stop the boats. I let a family go. They wanted to leave, and that touched my heart. Now, I get where he's coming from, but it is their duty. The problem with the French is, as soon as those boats are in the water, they refuse to stop them. But there have also been reports, and this paper covers it, of them standing on the beaches and watching the boats leave and not stopping
just
them.
yesterday, 2 asylum seekers were convicted, weren't they, for assaulting French gendarmes who were working at our behest and had stones and whatever knows what thrown at them as these guys were boarding onto one of these boats and leaving French waters. So they are trying, and then they're getting assaulted.
Some of them are trying, but we have given the French millions over the years, and the situation is getting worse.
And ministers will put under pressure on that front by interviewers. Fraser, you've gone to the Telegraph front page there. You've got the former Conservative minister, Rory, what's his name?
Rory Stewart.
Rory Stewart, talking about the pressures on politicians.
Yes, so he's around promoting his memoirs, we should say, and he's saying that, you know, the pressure on MPs has become intolerable. On the one hand, he says that there's almost too much pressure on MPs, but then he also says that Parliament is not a serious place, and that he felt that, you know, he was much more important before he became an MP, and people stopped taking him seriously and treated him like a child. He said he felt creepy having to tell David Cameron that he had brilliant policies and things like that all the time, having to sort of suck up to the boss. So it's quite a sort of wide-ranging and strange interview. I don't think it makes Rory Stewart look great. I think he wants us to both feel sorry for him for being simultaneously under too much pressure, having too much work, and at the same time feeling like a bit of a nobody. He kind of admits that he didn't really achieve anything while he's an MP, and then blames that on the system.
I mean, he sat down with our Gloria De Piero here at GBNEWS, and I don't know if that's fair. I don't know if he was trying to get a sympathy vote. I think he was trying to highlight what a horrible job it is being an MP and how actually it's a very weird system once you become a minister that you have to toe the party line even. And this is why so many of these MPs actually are feeling suicidal. A lot of them having to vote for things that they actually really don't believe in.
Day after day we have to interview ministers and you think, well, you don't obviously believe that. And it's a nonsense. And I think where Rory Stewart is absolutely right. The system sucks. The system is ridiculous. The system does not work, and we stick to this antiquated system. And then listening to that Egypt Sunak talking about the sanctity of Parliament, I just couldn't get over that with him talking about that yesterday. I think you've got to strike a balance, because I'm sure that in one sense we would probably like some more independent-minded MPs, but on the other hand, you know, when most of us vote in a general election, we're thinking about the party. And we're thinking about the government or the opposition. And so we do sort of expect, you know, if MPs are going to deviate significantly from essentially the manifesto... You want a joined-up policy, then? You want joined-up thinking? Yeah, I think someone like Rory Stewart... I mean, there's other comments he makes. He says that, you know, he doesn't like the way that ministers are selected. He seems to think they should be sort of hired from the private sector, a bit like they do in America. Again, that feels like, to me... slightly, I think his track record is fairly, you know, anti-democratic. We do at least know that ministers are accountable for all their other problems.
Even if they're inexperienced. I mean, there is a big argument for technocrats, people who actually have experience of their brief. It always blows my mind when someone comes in from whatever it was. What was Therese Coffey? She was health secretary for a couple of weeks, smoking cigars and God knows what else, and now she's in environment, you know, and they have to suddenly be leading the country on this. And whereas somebody who actually is from
local
that
councils,
field...
I used to remember, you know, when you was a young reporter looking at who represented people at local councils and what was their expertise and brief, except they shouted louder than most other people.
Very confident.
The only thing I would say here is I think sometimes the rhetoric around how we talk about how politicians can be dangerous. If you think about Joe Cox and Sir David Amess in Southend, I think there is a lack of respect in general now. Some of them are doing a very good job.
I totally agree. And do you know what I think, Dawn? I think journalists like ourselves have a lack of respect for them. I think they have allowed this to happen. I think politicians make themselves too easily available for interviews, and they shouldn't be too accountable and available at the snap of a hand, that they come on GBNEWS or they come on the BBC or ITV or whatever it happens to be. And they've made a rod for their own backs.
I think they have, and I think the rhetoric they also use now as well garners a lack of respect amongst us. I mean, the language they use...
It's just sound bites, isn't it?
It's just sound bites. You don't believe a word they're saying. It just lets you know, I get that's what they do. But some of the language, I mean, the fact that it's acceptable to swear. and use and call people from the other party abusive names.
Yeah, and all it does is lead to apathy and a lack of interest in politics, particularly amongst the young, and then you end up with people who aren't really voting.
When I was a young reporter who came to national television, to get an interview with Michael Heseltine or something, or Norman Tebbit, was a scary experience.
Absolutely.
And absolutely, I mean, they were, Tory grandees, for instance, or Labour grandees, or whatever it happened to be. But I think there was much more respect about it in the language used to Secretary of States. But however, now they're to a penny. You can just get anybody on.
Can you imagine how scared I was having to go and interview Margaret Thatcher in Number 10? And I was a baby, and I was absolutely terrified. And now the thought of going to I know I'm older, obviously, going to interview any minister now, it's like, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm just thinking. Ian Paisley. They didn't get any much more scary than that. Never, never, never. Anyway, Dawn, we go to the Daily Mail.
This gets a little bit more scary, maybe, than Ian Paisley. That's spiders.
Sex.
Go on.
Sex. I can't even say I'm so excited by this story. Sex-crazed spiders are about to invade all our homes. It's the breeding season for our native species. They like to do it in comfort, obviously warm, dry, with a nice glass of wine, whatever. So they are, they are coming into our homes, obviously, in September and October, and having lots of little baby spiders. Now, I love spiders. I once had a pet spider, so I don't have an issue with that at all. However, I get that the way Isabel's looking at me now, not everyone feels the same.
Do you know
about
why?
them.
I've just moved house and I live in a very beamy, very old house.
Nooks and crannies.
They are everywhere. And it gets to the point where I get up in the morning, tiptoe to the bathroom so as not to wake everyone. There's a giant spider on the carpet. And I'm like, what? We've bought spider catchers. We've got the spray. It's like the house of horrors.
But you know, the spiders
Oh,
are
look
good
at that.
They keep...
No, well, this is... I tell the children, they catch the flies. It's good. It's part, They catch the flies. We mustn't be scared. I'm leading by example, but inside.
But you've been bitten in bed. And a spider bit you as well. But you haven't. What's a spider in your sheets?
Yeah, there was a spider in our bed the other day.
Which sort of spider was it, though?
A black one. Big
right,
one.
Okay, black big one. Yeah, that doesn't narrow it down. But the bigger the spider, in general, in this country, the less harmful they are to you. It's the little false widow spiders you've got.
What colour are they?
Black. But they're quite small, Isabel. But it depends on how big is big in your world.
Do you like spiders, Eamonn? And Fraser?
Me?
Yeah.
Not really.
Not
I mean,
really,
I wouldn't say I'm scared of them or anything, but you do feel a bit unsettled, especially if there's a lot of them.
But would you jump, big squeal in the night like I did?
Sometimes, though, you spot a spider and it knows you're looking at it and it runs, it skitters around.
Yes, it knows.
And other times you could hit it with a broom and it wouldn't move.
Do not hit spiders with a broom.
No, I usually stand on them. No, I don't usually stand on them.
Eamonn.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed, Fraser and Dawn. We now thank Alex Burkhill for what you're about to receive. Here we go.